The sleek black Tesla pulled up slowly to the edge of the cracked driveway. The neighborhood was quiet, forgotten by time, and untouched by the city's development. The house itself looked like it hadn't felt warmth in years. Peeling paint, sagging porch, and a crooked "for sale" sign tossed to the side like an afterthought. The door opened with a soft click. Out stepped Maya Clarkson. She wore a cream-colored blazer, tailored to perfection, and heels that didn't belong on this kind of street. Her presence was like a foreign language here, too polished, too composed, too powerful. The driver, an older man with soft eyes and quiet respect, watched her with a puzzled glance. "Are you sure this is the place, Miss Clarkson?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She stood still, keys clutched in her palm like a weapon, eyes locked on the front door. "Yes," she said, voice even. "I'm sure." She walked up the steps slowly, the wood groaning beneath her like it remembered her weight. Her hand trembled slightly as she slid the key into the lock. Click. She pushed the door open. The smell hit her first. Dust, mildew, and a faint hint of something she couldn't place but would never forget. Her heels echoed across the floorboards as she stepped inside, each click a quiet war drum in her chest. She walked past the empty living room, the once white curtains now stained brown and sagging, past the staircase where she used to sit, afraid to make a sound, straight into the kitchen, and there it was, still cramped, still cold, still wearing the same faded linoleum tiles she had memorized, like a map of her suffering. Maya's breath caught as her eyes landed on the far corner wall, faint but still visible, scratch mark, dozens of them, neatly spaced. She walked over and ran her fingers over them. She used to scratch a line for every hour. Every time Ralph locked her in for discipline, every time she sat in the dark, listening for footsteps that never came, every time her mother didn't open the door. Flash. 12-year-old Maya curled up beside the broken radiator, her knees pulled to her chest, bare arms trembling from the cold. The tiny kitchen window cast a grey, lifeless light across her face. From outside, the door came Ralph's voice, sharp, emotionless. "Good girls earn their place in the house. Remember that." The sound of a lock turning, his footsteps retreating. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. Crying only made the hours longer. She pressed her ear to the floor, hoping to hear her mother's voice. A whisper, a rescue, anything, nothing. Back to the present. Maya stood taller, shoulders squared, but her hands were still shaking. She opened the cabinet under the sink, empty, just like always. She inhaled slowly, exhaled slower. This time, she had the key. This time, the door had opened because she turned the lock. But the questions still hung in the air like fog. Why was I never enough for them? And deeper still, how did I survive long enough to come back? Maya Clarkson had learned early that survival wasn't always about fighting back. It was often about silence, about endurance, about staying invisible until the storm passed. She was 8 when the storm first arrived. Her father, David Clarkson, had been everything to her. Gentle hands, big laugh, warm hugs that smelled like peppermint and motor oil. He died on a rainy December evening, hit by a drunk driver just 5 minutes from home. The hole his absence left was massive, but Maya's mother, Tanya, filled it quickly, too quickly. Within a year, Tanya had remarried. His name was Ralph Hendricks, a charming man on the outside, smiling, polite, brought flowers to their doorstep. Neighbors liked him. Even Maya tried to like him at first, clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he could help her mother smile again. But smiles faded fast in the Clarkson home. By the time Maya was 10, Ralph had begun to show his true self. He was possessive, manipulative, and cold. Tanya, fragile and clinging to the illusion of a new beginning, was an easy target. She wanted peace, more than she wanted truth. And Ralph made sure she saw Maya not as a grieving child, but as a problem. "She talks back," he'd say. "She's disrespectful. She doesn't listen. She needs to learn boundaries." Tanya, desperate not to lose another husband, nodded. She started believing it, and so it began. The first time Ralph locked Maya in the kitchen, she was 11. It was late October, and the house was freezing. He told her it was just time out. He didn't unlock the door until morning. After that, it became routine. A slammed door, a turned key, hours of silence. Sometimes a single slice of bread slipped through the dog door. Other times, nothing at all. Tanya never interfered. Sometimes Maya thought she heard her crying upstairs. Other times she knew she was just turning up the volume on the TV. Maya stopped asking questions after a while. She scratched marks on the wall, told herself stories, promised herself she'd grow up, leave, and never come back. And she did. By 17, she was out. Scholarship to the University of Georgia. Never once looked back. She worked 2 jobs through school, earned a degree in architecture, and eventually started her own firm in Atlanta, Clarkson Design Group. Today, her name carried weight in the property development world. She had sleek offices, high-rise contracts, and a team of 25 under her leadership. To the world, she was a success story. But in quiet moments, the kitchen always came back. She never spoke of it. Not in therapy, not with friends, not with the 2 men she'd tried to love but pushed away when things got too close. There was always a wall, and it was built with those kitchen tiles. That room was the last place she saw herself as a child, and it was the first place she learned how not to cry. Then one night, at 2 a.m., while working on a late proposal, Maya clicked open a real estate alert on her phone. The address jumped off the screen: 42 Harris Lane, Steubenville, Ohio. The listing called it a fixer-upper with potential. Her hand froze on the mouse. She stared at it for a long time before clicking buy now. She didn't tell anyone, not her assistant, not her best friend Elise, not even her lawyer. She wired the money the next morning. Cash offer, no inspection, closed in under a week. And now she was here, back in the house where silence screamed louder than words. Maya stood in the middle of the kitchen again, arms crossed. It looked smaller than she remembered, the ceilings lower, the walls closer, but the feelings still as raw as the day she left. She wasn't sure why she came back. Maybe it was closure. Maybe she just wanted to own the place that once owned her. Whatever the reason, it wasn't just about the house. It was about the girl who sat here night after night, praying for someone to choose her. Maya ran her fingers over the scratched tally marks again and whispered, barely audible, "I see you now." For the first time in decades, the door to the past wasn't locked. She had opened it herself. The house creaked with familiarity and ghosts. Every floorboard groaned with memory as Maya moved slowly, deliberately, room to room. Dust swirled in the filtered afternoon light, and though the place was clearly neglected, it stood upright, like a tired body that hadn't yet collapsed. The living room still had the old, uneven windows with the warped glass that distorted the view of the outside world. As a girl, she used to stare through those panes, pretending the blurs were secret visitors come to rescue her. She stepped past them now with quiet disdain. Her feet led her inevitably back to the kitchen. Same linoleum floor, same rusted sink. The cabinet under the counter still had a dent. Ralph had kicked it once in a rage, cursing Maya for making noise while breathing. She knelt by the cabinet, opened it. Empty. But then something caught her eye. A loose floorboard near the back wall, just beneath the kitchen table's old imprint on the tiles. She tugged at it carefully. The wood was brittle, but she pried it loose with a small grunt. Inside, tucked between yellowed insulation and forgotten crumbs, was a thin Polaroid. She pulled it out. It was her, maybe 6 years old, sitting in the sun on her father's lap. Her mother was next to them, smiling. No Ralph, just the original 3 of them, happy, whole. Maya's fingers trembled, her jaw clenched. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Then she slowly sat down on the cold floor and cradled the picture in her lap. Her shoulders began to shake, and then it came, the sobs, the kind that had nowhere to go for years, quiet, deep, body-racking. She wasn't crying for her success or for the power she'd built in the world. She was crying for that little girl who waited, night after night, for someone, anyone, to unlock the kitchen door. Maya didn't hear the knock at first. It was soft, hesitant. Another knock, louder. She wiped her face roughly and stood, heart hammering. She opened the front door. There stood Tanya, her mother, hair greyer than Maya remembered, thinner. Her posture was unsure, almost frightened, as if expecting to be turned away. A wrinkled scarf clung around her neck, even though it was warm outside. They stared at each other for a long moment. Tanya broke the silence first. "Maya?" Maya didn't answer. Her face was unreadable. Tanya stepped closer, eyes sweeping the doorway behind her daughter. Why would you buy this place?" Maya's voice was quiet but steady. "Because I was ready to walk through the front door for once." Tanya blinked. The words hit her like a slap. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Just the sound of the wind brushing past them on the porch. Maya didn't move aside to let her in. Tanya looked down at her feet. "I didn't know it was on the market until I heard from the agent in town. I thought you'd never come back here. I didn't think I would either, Maya said. Silence again. Finally, Tanya asked, barely audible, "Can I come in?" Maya hesitated, then stepped aside. Tanya entered slowly, her eyes scanning the interior, like it might fall apart any second. She reached the kitchen and stopped, her breath caught. She was staring at the scratched marks on the wall. She looked away quickly. "I didn't know he locked you in here," she said. "You didn't want to know," Maya replied. Tanya turned to face her, tears forming. "I was afraid. I thought I had no one. I was a child, Mom. I had no one." The pain between them was thick, but Maya stood taller now, more grounded. Tanya looked like she might collapse under the weight of it all. Maya looked at the photo still in her hand, then slid it into her coat pocket. "Why are you really here?" she asked. Tanya swallowed hard. "I heard you bought it, and I guess I had to see for myself. I needed to know if you were really back." "I'm not back," Maya said. "I just came to reclaim something that was stolen from me." Tanya nodded slowly, the truth sinking into her skin like cold rain. Tanya sat stiffly in one of the old dining chairs, the wood groaning under her weight. Maya stood, arms crossed, staring out the kitchen window, her jaw clenched tight. "You don't have to look at me like that," Tanya said, voice trembling. "I know I failed you." Maya didn't move. You didn't just fail me. You abandoned me. Over and over. Tanya winced. "I didn't know he was doing all that." Maya turned sharply, her eyes sharp. Don't stand in my house and lie." Tanya's lips parted as if to protest, but she fell silent. "You knew," Maya said, her voice like steel. "You had to know, the way he looked at me, the way he talked to me when you weren't around. The bruises I tried to hide. You saw it. You just chose not to deal with it, because he made you feel loved, and I was just in the way." "That's not true," Tanya whispered, but her eyes fell to the floor. "I was scared. He said you were acting out, that you were lying to make him look bad. He told you I was unstable," Maya cut in. "Said I was broken, and you believed him. Your own daughter." Tanya's voice cracked. "I didn't know what to believe. I was losing him. So you sacrificed me instead," Maya snapped. "You gave him the benefit of the doubt while I was locked in this kitchen, crying myself to sleep on the cold floor. You kept choosing him until I didn't even exist in this house anymore." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tanya wiped her eyes, her hands shaking. "I thought you hated me." "I did, for a long time." Maya's voice softened slightly, but it was still cold. "But hate takes too much energy, so I left. I built a life. I moved forward." Flashbacks began to flood Maya's mind as she paced the kitchen floor. At 12, Maya had asked to go on a field trip with her classmates. Ralph told her no, said she didn't deserve rewards for existing. When she asked Tanya, her mother said, "Maybe next time," eyes flicking nervously toward him. At 13, she wasn't allowed to join extracurriculars. Ralph said they were a waste of time and insisted she come straight home after school. Her friends stopped calling. Her teachers noticed her slipping, but no one dug deep enough. At 15, he slapped her across the face for leaving a light on in the hallway. When she confronted her mother about it, Tanya said, "He didn't mean it. He's just under pressure." At 16, when Maya finally told a school counselor that Ralph was locking her in the kitchen at night, child services were called. Ralph sat in the meeting, composed and convincing. "She's troubled," he said. "Delusional. She makes up these stories for attention." Tanya sat silently beside him, nodding. Maya had looked at her mother, eyes begging for her to speak up. She never did. "I almost believed I was crazy," Maya said now. "That's how deep his manipulation went, and you let it happen." "I didn't know how to stop him," Tanya said helplessly. "He controlled everything, the money, the house, me. I was a child," Maya said. "You were the adult. It was your job to protect me, not survive me." There was a long, aching pause. "When I was 17, I left," Maya said quietly. "You remember that?" Tanya nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I had nothing," Maya continued. "No money, no plan, just the clothes I stuffed into a backpack. I crashed on couches. I worked part-time cleaning jobs before school. I stopped eating some days, just to keep going. And then, by some miracle, Mrs. Baldwin, my English teacher, saw me sleeping in the art room one morning. She didn't ask questions. She just said, 'Let's get you somewhere safe.'" "She helped you?" Tanya asked brokenly. "She helped me get emancipated. Took months of court dates, affidavits, paperwork. She said she'd never seen a kid fight that hard to never go back home. Tanya broke down, sobbing. I didn't know it got that bad. It always was that bad. You just refused to see it. Tanya stood unsteady. If I could go back, I would change everything. I would have left him, protected you. But you didn't, Maya said simply. You chose comfort. You chose denial. And I chose survival. There was another silence. I tried to find you, Tanya said softly. After Ralph died, I wanted to talk to you, to tell you I was sorry. You waited until he was dead? Maya asked, a flicker of disgust in her voice. Of course you did. Tanya looked at her. He died 3 years ago. Cancer. Maya's face didn't shift, not even slightly. Good. Tanya blinked. You don't mean that. Oh, I do, Maya said. He died in a bed, probably with pain meds, comfort, hospice. That's more than he ever gave me. Tanya covered her mouth with one hand, trembling. I didn't come here to forgive anyone, Maya said. I came here to take back what belonged to me. This house broke me, and I'm going to decide what happens to it now. Tanya opened her mouth, but Maya raised a hand. Number, you don't get to ask for more. I gave you. It was 2 days after Tanya's visit. The silence in the house had changed. It no longer echoed with memory. It throbbed with it. Maya had barely slept. She paced, renovated, worked on her laptop from the old living room, but she couldn't stop thinking about the way Tanya had looked at her, not with a mother's love, but with something else. Desperation, fear. The next morning, Maya sat with the county records spread out on her kitchen table. Curiosity had gotten the better of her. She wanted to know how long the house had sat vacant, who held the deed, and what she found made her blood run cold. The house hadn't been sold by a bank or auction. It had been listed directly by Tanya Clarkson. Ralph had left the house to Tanya in his will. She'd been the legal owner since his death. Maya's stomach dropped as she pieced the rest together. Tanya had taken out a reverse mortgage 5 years ago, the kind that preyed on the elderly, the desperate. She'd defaulted. The lender had seized the property. Foreclosure proceedings had started months ago. That's when it was listed. Tanya hadn't shown up out of nowhere. She hadn't driven by and seen Maya's car and knocked out of curiosity or guilt. She knew who bought the house. She'd wanted Maya to see her. She had nowhere else to go. Maya closed her laptop and stared blankly at the old kitchen wallpaper. The paper was peeling. One edge still bore the faint grease smudge of Ralph's thumb. She remembered how he used to sit at the table with a beer and a fork, tapping until Tanya served him dinner like a maid, her fists clenched. Tanya had come back not for closure, not for forgiveness. She came begging. The anger rose so fast it startled Maya. Hot, sharp, childlike. She wanted to scream, to smash the windows, to rip the house apart and bury the past with it. Instead, she marched up to the attic. It was stuffy, dry, layered in a fine powder of dust. Boxes lined the walls, forgotten Christmas decorations, old baby toys, discarded furniture. She opened one box, then another, until her hand brushed the corner of a faded floral shoebox shoved behind an old chest. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them, all addressed in familiar handwriting. Maya Clarkson. Miss you, please read. She pulled out the first letter and opened it. The ink was smudged in places, like tears had fallen across the page. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know I knew. I always knew. I was just too afraid to face it. Ralph told me if I tried to leave, he'd destroy everything. He said he'd lie to the courts, say I was unstable, that he'd take the house, take everything, and leave me with nothing. Maya's fingers trembled. I watched him hurt you and I told myself it was just a phase, that he'd calm down, that if I kept the peace, we'd all survive. I see now how cowardly that was. You were just a girl, and I let you suffer. I can't take it back, but I never stopped thinking about you. Another letter, dated 3 years after Maya left. I've tried to write 100 times. I always stop. What could I say? I'm sorry doesn't scratch the surface. I dream of you walking in the door, of you giving me a second chance, but I don't deserve one. I know that. I just hope you're safe and free. Maya sank onto the floor, clutching the box to her chest. Letter after letter poured out, some angry, some remorseful, some just empty of words, only torn paper and scribbled beginnings. In one, Tanya detailed how she'd planned to leave, saved money, packed a bag, but Ralph found it. She said he grabbed her by the neck and told her she'd regret it if she tried again, and she hadn't. Maya's throat tightened. It wasn't absolution, and it didn't erase the past, but it changed something. It cracked the surface of the image she'd held all these years, that her mother was simply cruel, complicit, willfully blind. The truth was messier. Tanya had been weak, trapped, terrified, not innocent, no, but not heartless either. That evening, Maya sat at the edge of the porch steps, the box beside her. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows on the lawn, her childhood lawn. Tanya pulled up in a rusted sedan, hesitantly stepping out. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here." Maya looked at her. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, "You didn't come to make peace, did you?" Tanya lowered her gaze. "Number I didn't. You came because you lost everything." Tanya nodded. "Yes. And you thought maybe you could come home." A pause. "It was never home for me," Maya said quietly. "But I found your letters." Tanya looked up sharply, her lips parting. Maya continued, voice softer now. "They don't fix what happened, but they changed how I see you." Tanya took a tentative step forward. "So, what now?" Maya looked at the fading sky. Her jaw was still tight, but her eyes held a trace of something else. Conflict, compassion maybe. She hadn't decided yet. "I don't know." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the worn counters and chipped paint like a spotlight on an old stage. The same kitchen where Maya had once cried silently behind a locked door now held the quiet hum of a fresh coffee pot and the clinking of 2 mugs being set on the table. Maya sat across from her mother, this time not as a child pleading to be heard, but as a woman standing in her own truth. Tanya looked older in the daylight, her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the warm mug. There was no makeup, no pretense, just years of regret sitting quietly across from decades of pain. Maya took a slow sip of her coffee, then placed the cup down with calm deliberation. "This house," she began, her voice even, "took everything from me." Tanya's gaze dropped to the table. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to apologize again, but Maya held up a hand. "I don't need more apology," she said. "What I need is to do something with this pain, to turn it into something useful, something better." She reached over and opened a folder, sliding a set of architectural drawings across the table. Tanya blinked in surprise. "I'm going to renovate it," Maya said, the conviction in her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Not for resale, not for profit. I'm turning it into a community center for girls in the foster system, girls coming out of abusive homes, girls like I was." Tanya's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes welled up instantly. "It'll have private counseling room, a small library, workshops, art therapy, a safe sleeping area for emergencies, and always someone on call, always a door that opened." Maya's fingers brushed the table gently. "I'm calling it the open kitchen, because no child should ever be locked in one." Tanya broke. She sobbed openly, shoulders shaking, with a grief that had been festering in silence for years. I don't deserve to be here," she choked. "I don't deserve to see this, to see you, like this." "No," Maya agreed softly. "You don't, but you're here, and I believe people can still be useful, even broken ones." Tanya wiped her face, her breath catching as she tried to compose herself. "I want to help, whatever you'll let me do. Cleaning, organizing, cooking. I can help cook. I can do paperwork, drive the girls, anything." Maya studied her, not with the mistrust of yesterday, but with the measured caution of a builder checking the foundation before laying brick. "I'll hold you to that," she said finally. "This won't be about guilt or redemption. These girls need reliability, honesty. If you're not up to it, don't show up. But if you are, then show up. Every day." Tanya nodded fiercely, her lips pressed together, holding back another wave of emotion. They sat in silence a moment longer. No more accusations, no more denials, just a shared space of quiet reckoning. For the first time in years, maybe ever, the kitchen felt like a place of choice instead of punishment. Later that afternoon, Maya stepped outside and looked up at the house. The shutters were still faded, the steps still cracked, but in her hands were blueprints for something no one could ever take from her again. Not survival, power. She wasn't just rewriting her story, she was offering others the pen. The gates of the foundation creaked open gently, and Evelyn stepped through, her cane tapping softly against the paved walkway. The sun cast a golden sheen on the newly painted buildings, where bright murals of girls reading, drawing and dreaming stretched across the walls. Laughter echoed from the courtyard, high, light, free. She paused at the entrance, her gaze resting on a brass plaque mounted on the outer wall. She leaned in, her hand brushing the cool metal. In honor of Evelyn Blake, the woman who taught one child and unknowingly healed a generation. Her breath caught. Behind her, a young teacher was guiding girls into class. Some waved at her shyly, others too lost in excitement to notice. One girl, about 8, turned mid-run and beamed at Evelyn with the same wide-eyed curiosity Celia once had. Evelyn smiled back, her eyes brimming but steady. Celia appeared beside her, clipboard in hand, but today she was not a doctor, just a daughter in spirit. She placed a gentle hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "They all know your name," Celia said softly, "but one day they'll know your story too." Evelyn looked out at the classrooms, at the chalkboards and mismatched desks, at the girls who ran barefoot without shame, who laughed with no fear of silence, and in that moment, the ache that had lingered in her heart for decades, the regret, the loss, the wondering, began to ease. A voice within her, perhaps a memory, perhaps something deeper, spoke quietly. "I thought I had lost everything, but in teaching one forgotten girl to read, I unknowingly wrote my life's most powerful story." She didn't need applause. She didn't need to be understood by the ones who had walked away. These girls, this space, this peace, was enough. She took a seat under the old almond tree and watched as the next class began, their voices rising like a hymn. And there, surrounded by the very hope she once planted, Evelyn Blake finally rested, not in silence, but in quiet joy. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.